William Golding works as a schoolmaster in Salisbury. He teaches at Bishop Wordsmiths School in the Cathedral Close. He teaches philosophy, Greek and English. His first novel, Lord of the Flies, was about a group of schoolboys stranded on an island after an air crash. He chose schoolboys, he says, because he wanted a subject out of his own experience, and they were what he knew best.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Right, sit down, please. Now, how far have we got?
2 months.
Right, lend me a book, somebody. Banquo? Who's playing Banquo?
Me, sir.
Flynn?
Me, sir.
Macbeth?
Me, sir.
Servant?
Me, sir.
Right, come up and show us what you can do.
How goes the night, boy?
The moon is down. I have not had the clock.
And she goes down at 12.
I take it later, sir.
Hold, take my sword. There's husbandry in heaven. Their candles are all out. Take these that.
Golding lives in the little village of Bowerchalk, 12 miles outside Salisbury, with his wife and 2 children. I talked to him there in his cottage, which looks out onto the Wiltshire Downs. Mr. Golding, your first novel wasn't published till you were nearly 40. This seems rather late to start writing. Why was this?
I didn't start writing when I was 40. I had been writing ever since I was 7. I suppose you can say I've been effectively writing since I was 35. I published my first book, or had my first book published, a book of verse, when I was 19. I'll say very little more about that. I just want to forget that one. Nobody knows anything about it. And then out of the rest, you've got to take 5 years for the war in the Navy, and 10 years perhaps learning to write by imitating other people, and learning very late that, of course, I was merely writing other people's novels instead of my own. And it wasn't until I was 37, I suppose, that I grasped the great truth that you've got to write your own books and nobody else's. Then everything followed from that.
How do you set about writing a novel?
I plan a novel from the beginning right to the end. Before I write anything in detail, I see it in the air as a kind of budless shape, about so long from here to here, and then the detail begins to fill in, and I work it out until almost the last flick of an eyelid, and then I write through from one side to the other.
This implies that you're in absolute, complete control of your material. Don't you ever find meanings in the finished article you hadn't expected to find them? Or intended?
No, I don't think so. I feel that what I meant at first is then written. I can imagine that a painter can entirely visualize a painting and then just paint what he's visualized, and I think I write like that.
Do you think it's possible that a reader may understand your novels better than you yourself?
He can understand it in a different way, but I would guess that he can't understand it in a better way, because well, let's put it this way, that at the one on the receiving end is the critic, and at the shooting end is the author. Now, before the author shoots, when he's writing his book, he gets to know his book in a way no critic can possibly know it, even if he reads it 20 times. I'm against the picture of the artist as a starry-eyed visionary, not really in control or knowing what he does. I think I'd almost prefer the word craftsman. He's like one of the old-fashioned shipbuilders who conceived the build of the boat in their mind, and after that touched every single piece that went into the boat. They were in complete control. They knew it inch by inch, and I think the novelist is very much like that.
Outside his work and his writing, one of Golding's chief interests is archaeology. He spends a lot of time at the Roman ruins of Old Sarum, high up on a hill above the present town of Salisbury. He knows a good deal about archaeology, and he's done some digging himself. And his second novel, The Inheritors, sprang from this interest. It's about a group of Neanderthal men and their encounters with a strange new creature they can't understand, who turns out to be man. Ourselves, in fact. In Golding's view, Neanderthal man is a much better and pleasanter person than his successors. Golding's other great interest is the sea. He keeps a converted oyster smack down on Southampton Water. In the school holidays, he and the family go for long trips round the coasts of France and Belgium.
The sea figures in my books. It keeps popping in, perhaps as a symbol, almost as a person at times. That's partly because I was born in Cornwall by the sea and have always gone back to it. Partly because in some curious way I seem to understand the movement of water, and I feel when you go back to the sea, or going back to something which is the same now that it was 20 million years ago, perhaps it might even be some elemental kind of security, I don't know.
In your last novel, Pinscher Martin, it was apparently about a naval officer washed up on a rock in mid-Atlantic and his efforts to survive on it.
Mm.
Was this another case of writing about what you knew, or about your experience?
Well, not entirely, because it's a novel about a dead man, and I'm still living. But if you like, the things that were imported into that novel, pictures of the rock and of limpets and anemones and pictures of a destroyer at sea and so on, that sort of thing, of course, arises out of my own past, my own knowledge. But they were regrouped for the purpose of the novel, obviously enough.
In fact, in Pinscher Martin, the rock is more than a rock in the sea, or a struggle for a man's survival on this rock. It has other implications.
Well, I suppose that we could take a Roman Catholic view of the universe, and I said to myself, well, now, if this is a true picture of reality, the Roman Catholic, as Roman Catholic dogma would have it, then what happens to a man when he dies? It doesn't matter whether he's a Roman Catholic or not. He will still find the same truth, the same kind of process going on. On the other hand, if he's not a Catholic, and if he's not a man with any religious feelings at all, if he is in fact a very wicked man, he will hang on so to life that in fact, in a way, he won't die. He will create his own purgatory. He himself will be his purgatory, his memories of the past and all the rest of it. So, Pinscher Martin isn't about a man who tries to survive by climbing on a rock. It is in fact about a man who dies on page 2. I made him die very deliberately on page 2. And the rest of the book, right up to the last chapter, is in fact about the man in purgatory. He creates for himself a little coherent world out of his memories, out of his unconscious memories, and it's only gradually that begins to come apart, because his memories aren't entirely coherent. They're very nearly coherent, but he sees, for example, he sees a lobster. Well, now, he visualizes the lobster as red, because the only lobsters he's seen have been on a fishmonger's slab where they've been boiled. And he sees the seabirds. Well, they seem to him to be inimical creatures. They're attacking him all the time. They're dangerous. They're his enemies. And he says to himself that he sees the lizard in them. He thinks in terms of evolution, the idea of the bird having evolved from the lizard. But in point of fact, of course, these are the other creatures who torment the lost souls.
The Furies.
If you like the Furies, yes. I wouldn't quarrel with that, I don't think. And then again, the rock itself is really the memory of a rotten tooth he had in his mouth. And it's only when his tongue, or his imaginary tongue, pokes into the place where the tooth was and outlines to himself the shape, and he realizes that really he's outlining the shape of the rock on which he's found himself, that then this awful truth begins to dawn on him, that really he's dead, and that he's being taken apart, because the compassion of God is going to take all this dreadful structure of greed away from him and leave him naked, leave him the kind of seed of God, the scintillant day, leave nothing but that, the original thing, the Christopher, the Christ-bearer. Well, now, he fights against that all the time, and because he is a very wicked man who has no kind of religious experience at all, he can't see the compassion of God, he can merely see it by a kind of negation. It is to him the black lightning that's breaking up everything. It's absolute nothingness, and it forces him in and in and in, and all the time he's hanging on, he's greed, sheer wickedness, until finally he's nothing but claws clutched into each other. And that is still there, resisting this black lightning, which is the compassion of God trying to open them up, and really trying to take them away, trying to take all the Pinscher structure away, and just receive him as he was.
You seem very fond of shock endings in your novels. These endings put the whole novel in a completely different perspective. Almost make you want to read it again. Is this deliberate?
It's deliberate. The shock ending is deliberate. The reasons for doing it, I'm not sure of the weight I should give to the different reasons, because there are several. One of them is that I like a shock ending, and the other one is that I do like people to read the books twice, because I write my novels basically about ideas which concern me deeply and which I think are important, and therefore I think I want people to take them seriously, and to read it twice, of course, is taking it seriously, and the shock ending does help that. It suddenly makes you think, well, now, I'm not sure that I really knew all the time. Now I see this in a different light. Now I must read it again with a better understanding, a deeper understanding. I think it's effective.
All your novels have been very much on the short side, not more than about 250 pages.
Well, one is competing for the attention of an audience. People are either going to be watching television, listening to the radio, going to the cinema, or reading a book. After all, you could guarantee an audience in Victorian days, when a book was about the only entertainment you had outside of London. Nowadays, of course, you can't. You have to fish for your audience, I think, and you, in a sense, you have to compel them. And something short, which can be read, I hope, at a sitting. I like my books to be read at a sitting, if possible, and I think it's something I've done. That seems to me to stand some chance of competing with your medium.
Your new novel, Free Fall, has just been published. Could you tell us something about it?
It's very difficult to do that, because it's much nearer me than the others are.
In what way?
Well, more recent, if you like. And it's also more ambitious, in a way. I've tried to give what I hope is a picture of modern man in the 20th century, with his anarchic background, his feeling that values have slipped or change, and day by day they're not the same. So he is in fact in this curious state of not really having roots. He hasn't got the gravity of an accepted system which holds him upright. He's just floating.
This is a problem a lot of contemporary writers are tackling. Have you got any particular attitudes about this man's situation?
Well, now I'm going to sound pretentious, probably. I think I've probably sounded pretentious already, but I do want to try and put this over, because it is important to me that, as experience, it seems to me that we do live in two worlds. There is this physical one, which is coherent, and there is a spiritual one, which, to the average man, with his flashes of religious experience, if you like to call them, that world is very often incoherent. But nevertheless, as a matter of experience, for me, and I suspect for millions of other people, this experience of having two worlds to live in all the time, or not all the time, occasionally, is a vital one, and is what living is like. And that's why this book is important to me, because I've tried to put those two worlds into it as a matter of daily experience.
Do you mean you're trying to look behind the appearance of things?
Not exactly, because the appearance of things is reality as we have it presented to us. I would say more trying to rub the labels of things, the labels of words, because really you can, if you accept life dully, go through it, moving not among things but among words. You can move from house to house, H-O-U-S-E, instead of going past this structure that you see. It's, if you like, seeing it afresh, but I would like to say, and again this is pretentious, that if you succeed in removing the labels and seeing things absolutely fresh, then in a way you're almost seeing them as though they're created at that moment, as though they're continually created, as though they're supported from beneath, as though, it's the quotation, isn't it, he holds us in the hollow of his hand, as though one sees them as they're supported by God. Now this is pretentious, but it's the best I can do.
Sammy Mountjoy in Free Fall says, and I quote, "Art is partly communication, but only partly. The rest is discovery." Do you see yourself as a communicator or a discoverer?
Well, I'm living. Tomorrow I shall be a little different, as yesterday I was a little different. My views change. As long as I'm alive and aware, I just can't tell you what the balance is in any particular situation. It varies between the two. At one moment one may be wanting to communicate more than to discover. At another time one may be making the effort to discover, and the communication fades into the background. But this may seem strange to you, I do think that art that doesn't communicate is useless. Mind you, you may create it, but it remains useless if it doesn't communicate.
Special editions of Golding's novels have already been published in Germany, America, France and Italy. All his books have been well reviewed, but he has his own reservations about what he's written so far.
I don't know about other people, but I'm not satisfied with my books. People find them pessimistic. But I'm not a pessimist, I'm an optimist. And if that optimism, which is obvious to me as the background of my books, if that optimism doesn't come out, then I ought to have conveyed it more explicitly, more vividly, and more importantly.